Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Aspie Bridge show. What a great week we had last week, didn't we? Linda Tilson was awesome, and it leads us right into our very next program. But before I get started, I have a tagline I enjoy using. With all the wonderful Aspies out there on the internet and YouTube specifically, who are teaching you about what autism is, society, and the Aspie person who may not know what all their different traits are, such as Paul Micallef on Asperger's on the inside, and Sam out in Europe, and Sarah Hendricks in the UK, and all the wonderful people such as Taylor Heaton here in the USA. You don't need another Aspie woman telling you what autism is. They do a great job. And Taylor, obviously, Temple Grandin does an awesome job. She is our key person who will help you know. I'm here as the Aspie Bridge to help these women and some men who are late diagnosed go across the bridge and enter back into society, holding their head up with confidence and knowing that they don't need to be ashamed to be Aspie. We have so many wonderful traits that we can really capitalize on. And maybe today's show will really maybe turn around some of the things that you think are negative into positives. Let me start off by telling you about my story of working in Starbucks. Well, now I would love the pay to be better, more of a corporate level paycheck. But that doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. I love my job because I am a communicator and I work at the drive through window. And this coming May, I will have 5 years. What has gotten me 5 years with an awesome manager who truly understands me? Well, first of all, Logan is wonderful. He has a great aptitude of really getting to help each of his workers, his baristas, which is what we're called, to really know how to work with each one of us at our talents. And I have been with 7 managers during the course of my 5 years. A little scary, I know. But Logan's been the best of all of them because he really takes the time to listen and he allows me to be honest and authentic. We'll get into that very shortly. But, I have followed these traits, these 5 keys that I'm going to tell you about to becoming one of his best clients, his best baristas, excuse me. And that's because I follow a core value list of what's important to me to keep a job. Now, I wasn't always this talented. I have had my challenges as well, but I've learned the importance of these 5 keys in order to have a very successful job. Now I'm working up the ladder and I'm also my life coach too, but I enjoy talking to the customers. I enjoy wishing them a wonderful day. So maybe Starbucks can raise the um, price a little higher because of where they are to start everybody else's day. Shouldn't we get a little bit better of a paycheck? Well, anyway, I love talking to the customers, and that's the key right there. And I do that early in the morning so that I can spend the rest of my day here with all of you, helping you to cross the bridge into jobs you would love. Now, I had said last week that Becca Lori Hector was going to be with us this week, and she is, but not this week. She had a conflict of time, and she will be on the show either in person or recorded, most likely recorded, on March 26th. And she talks about inclusivity in the job, which means what are the managers allowed to do? What are the laws? What are the expectations an Aspie individual can expect when a company lives up to inclusivity protocol? So before we get to that, let's talk about some of the special keys that I was referring to earlier. Now, you've just received the job offer. You're excited. However, I want to ask you, were you authentic in the interview? Or did you come across trying to be a neurotypical person hiding your autism? Because what's going to happen is if you are authentic and you let them know that you're Aspie, you're going to find in the long run, if they accepted you on being autistic during the interview, that's going to help you go a lot further. That's what I did in Starbucks. I walked right in with them knowing where I was at. And I think that sometimes the most important thing is be authentic. This is who I am. This is what I can do. If you're not authentic, you're going to find within 6 months that you were expected to do things that you might not be able to do. So I'm asking you, did you wear a mask during the interview? Were you upfront and honest and saying, hey, I've come here because I really love what your company does, and I know I can add to it. I do have some challenges, and I'll be upfront and honest as we go through. But if you respect me, you will get a strong candidate for this job, a strong employee. Let me tell you why. I am authentic. I am going to be who I say I'm going to be. I'm going to hold my words with conviction. And that's important, Aspies. Don't say something unless you plan to have conviction behind those words. Don't tell them that you can do something unless you can really do it. I mean, that's the key right there. Be authentic. Next, be honest with yourself. Can you handle money? Can you talk to people all day long? Can you multitask? I walked right in and said, I am a very strong concentrator. I almost hyper focus. Now, to some people, hyper focus may not be a positive trait. To me, I am super concentrated on the skill I'm working on, such that nothing else around me will distract me. That's how you use hyper focus as a positive. If someone knows that you're not going to be distracted by other things going on, you turn out to be a very strong candidate, a very strong employee, because it means that you're not going to get involved in the conversations here. You're not going to be distracted by whether or not your coffee cup is full. You're not going to try and listen to the other conversations happening on. If you're hyper focused, that means your concentration is very strong. They like that. The next thing is money handling. How are you with money? I happen to be very strong, and my dad was very good with money as far as managing money from the counting aspect. We may not manage money from an expenditure, but we can certainly give back correct change and count money quickly and such. So, how are you at money handling? Is that a strength or is it a weakness? If it's a strength, then retail might be a great place for you, particularly if you're at the registers. If you're just going to go into a job and not be very strong at money handling and you're at the registers, well, that's a little bit harder to keep a job if it takes you a little bit longer to count the money out. These places are going to want a little bit of quickness. So know your skills. That's very important. Honesty. Do you understand where your limitations are? And do you know where your strengths are? I talked about the fact that I hyper focus. That's a strength. For me, multitasking is not a strength. So do I go into a job where I have to do more than 3 things at the same time for a long period of time? No, because my strength is hyper focusing, concentrating. Know thyself is a very important rule. Don't try to multitask if that's a challenge for you. And be honest from the very beginning. And be honest with the interviewer. If this job expects you to do more than one thing all day long, that might not be the best thing for you. You need to be honest with them and say, I have challenges doing multiple jobs, but I will be the best on-the-job person for you. The next thing is presence. How are you showing up? Are you showing up on time every day? Are you ready to go? Are you ready mentally to go? Now, you can show up physically, but if you're not emotionally and mentally ready to start your day, it's almost like you're not showing up on time. You need to really make sure that you say to yourself, I've arrived at work. It's time to put on an apron or go to my desk, whatever the job requires of you, and sit down and get going. If you're not ready emotionally, you need to really know that maybe that's not the best time of day for you. You need to know your rhythms. And so if you're not a morning person, that might not have been the best job for you. We're looking at making sure you can keep your job, not just have a job. And if you're a night owl and you're getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to be at work, well, unless you can find a way to change your circadian rhythm, which is your sleeping and awake times, that might be a challenge for you. So you need to arrive at work, you need to be on time, you need to be emotionally, physically ready to start your day. Now, the other part of that is, are you often absent from your job? Are you calling out sick like once a week? Are you just not quite there physically when they need you most? Yes, you might be able to find someone who can cover for you, but they still are going to really consider whether or not you're interested in the job if you're calling out sick every other week. And that's important for keeping your job. You don't want to set the reputation that you're going to be out on one of your shifts every week. So your presence is very important there. The next part, respect. Oh my gosh, that is the most important thing. We need to remember that we need to be active listeners first. 2 ears, 1 mouth. You need to really take into account what someone is saying to you. And I had a problem at the very beginning. I would interrupt because I would get excited and I would start to say something and then I'd be like, oops, excuse me. We're going to do it on occasion. I think everybody does it. I don't think you have to be on the spectrum to accidentally interrupt, but it's how you handle that interruption. Are you just going to talk anyway? Or are you going to say, excuse me, and stop talking until they are finished talking, and then go on from there? Because that's very important. You really need to make sure that you are not disagreeing with them or arguing with the person, because that's not appropriate. You really need to listen to what the interviewer is saying. Now, here's another thing. Are you asking questions when you're having a challenge? You know, questions get a bad rap. It makes some people think you're weak, but you're not weak. If you're running into a difficulty, you need to make sure you are asking a question. Maybe you don't have all the parts. Maybe they forgot to give you a part. And you're trying to finish this project, but they forgot to give you some information. Ask the question. It's not a weakness. You really need to be on top of that. The very last thing I want to do, because I want to make sure I get this out before I lose recording time, follow through. Can you start the project and get to the end and make sure the whole thing is done on the date that the manager, supervisor, owner needs the job done by? There is a term called reverse engineering. That's when you have on your calendar when the project is supposed to be done. Today by 5, it has to be done. which means that you're not waiting until 4:30 to start the project. If you said you could do it, you need to make sure that you are allotting X amount of time each hour if you do have more than one project going, or putting all your focus at the beginning of the time when you receive the project, so that you're just checking it out the last half hour. You're not starting it. You really need to make sure that you are there from the beginning of the project to when the project is due. Now, you don't want to just hand in a project and say, oh, it's done. You really need to make sure that you are allowing yourself at least 30 minutes to check through the project. Make sure it has the accuracy that you want. Make sure it's showing your best self. Because if you want to keep that job, you don't want to just start a project. You want to start the project in the best possible way and make sure that you are putting in your conscious effort the entire time. You don't want the distractions. You don't want the multi-projects. And I say that if you are not a multitasker and you're trying to do the multi-projects, that again is not going to be the best use of your skills and your capabilities. You want to have a job where you can concentrate on one project, see it through to the very end, and make sure it's your best possible work. We want to show up that we are strong workers, not partial workers. We want to show off that we have the capability that no other person really has to focus in on what is expected of us and give it our best. It's not going to be perfect. People are not perfect. But if you hand in a project and you feel good about it in your heart, I can tell you that you've given it your all. If you start a project and then forget it's there, well, not only will you not look like the best employee that you can be, I'm not saying compare yourself to others. I'm saying, do you feel good about your work? That's something important. Do you feel good about what you're finishing? And are you finishing it on time? I want to make sure that you know when the end time is, what the due date is. If you don't ask that, you need to ask that question. When do you want this project completed by? Then start at the end date or the end time, if it's today's project, and say, okay, I need to devote half an hour at least, at the very least. You can't just get started at 15 minutes. Now, that's not a challenge we usually have unless you happen to find that you are also dealing with ADHD. Then you need to make sure that your desk is cleared except for that project. It's very hard to concentrate on a project if you have 4 projects around you. Get yourself a pretty basket, put your stuff that's not related to that project in the basket, and concentrate on one project at a time. If you don't have distraction on your desk, you're going to find you're a lot better off concentrating on what's at hand. So we're going to wrap up this Aspie Bridge show a little early today, just because I don't want to rattle on, but let's go over and summarize again. Authenticity. Are you going to a job and talking to the interviewer about who you really are? Or did you put on a mask because it was the last job interview available and you're going to try and squeeze into this job because you need money? I can tell you that's not a recipe for success. You want to go into a job that's well fitting for you. Don't wear a mask. Be yourself. If they say, how are you at multitasking? Say, I'm sorry, that's not a strength, but I'm a great concentrator. And that's what I think you want for this job, is someone who will concentrate. Are you honest? Can you talk to people? Are you a good communicator? Are You're a good money handler. Look at what the job entails. Be honest with yourself. You don't want to be stressed out. Be honest with the interviewer. Make sure they know what your capabilities are. Because if you go and say, yeah, I can multitask, and then you can't. The third thing is presence. Show up mentally and emotionally and physically on time and be there. Plan to be there whenever your shift is required. Yeah, you might get sick. You might have a day when you need to call out. I would recommend not more than once a month. Just saying. Respect. Are you using your ears more than you're using your mouth? Are you asking for people for more information if you don't have it all? You need to make sure that you are being respectful to your manager, your supervisor, because that is going to show up that the Aspie woman can handle herself in a dignified way. You want your dignity preserved. That's not to say you're not going to have a hard day. Deep breaths, release, and then start again. But you need to be respectful of the people that are around you, the managers, the supervisors, and say, one moment, I need a moment, and then go back into your work. We really want to show society that we can handle the rigors of a job. We don't want to have special circumstances. Accommodations and special circumstances are not the same thing. Making sure you're not near a loud fan, bright lights, that's accommodations. Special circumstances where people can't say things to you that might be rude, yeah, that's, we're going to have to weather that. That's where the deep breathing comes in. And just saying, one moment, okay. That's where masks might be helpful, is for your own personal emotional resolve. That deep breathing, that finding that quiet corner to just refresh yourself. That is a form of mask that I use. I'm not trying to fit in. I'm just trying to get hold of my emotional status. And if you go deep enough, you can find your resolve is a lot stronger than you think. Deep breathing until you can find that release and then go back to what you're working. But last point. So we had authenticity, honesty, presence, respect, follow through. Can you make the deadlines? Can you set up your schedule in such a way that you're going to be there from the beginning to the end and your best quality of work is showing? That's what I want you to know. Because if you're not able to do that on a regular basis, I might recommend finding a different job or talking to your manager and saying, this is what I can handle. This is where I'm at. Can you help me? Then they may have some words for you of assistance, or they may have some words for you. Let's try and find you a different position that you might find a little less stressful. Now, when Lori Hector comes in, she'll tell us more about how this inclusivity works. I'm a little bit vague myself, only because I haven't had to work with managers in such a way that I had to bring in some of these laws. I've found my own core values of following through. But I'll be very interested in 2 weeks to hear about what she has to say on this. So for now, authenticity, honesty, presence, respect, and follow through are your 5 keys to being the best employee that you can be, not competition, that you can be, and keeping the job that you would love. And for now, I'm going to sign off and say, I hope you have a great week. I'll see you next Tuesday at 11 o'clock Central.